Welcome to the Everyday Apostle, where ordinary lives meet extraordinary faith. Join our host, Kendall Peterson, as we explore how everyday men and women bring the gospel to life wherever they live, work, and play. Let's dive into it right now.
Hello, and welcome to episode 16 of the Everyday Apostle podcast. I'm the host, Kendall Peterson. Once again, it is my pleasure and my joy to bring these stories of inspiration, of faith, and how we're doing all of that in the day-to-day. I have a very, very special guest that I'm looking forward to introducing you to. But first, I would like to give a shout-out. Making this episode possible today is the generous support of Grant and Michael Miller and Miami's community newspapers, whose great studios we're in for this episode, and whose producers are here, and whose support has been instrumental in all 16 episodes plus that we have put together. They are a great source of local news, of relevant, unbiased community news. They provide a ton of great content in every medium, from pixels to paper, and they have handy newspapers at the community level, including my favorite, the Kendall Gazette, no relation. But thank you once again to Michael and Grant for your graciousness in hosting this podcast. Now let's dive into today's show. Today I have the privilege of introducing a very special guest who I met through a men's retreat group here in Miami, Richard Sincore. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Kendall. I'm really excited to be here. I'm just so grateful that I can share some of my experiences with you.
Thank you. It's wonderful to have you on. So let me read Richard's bio. So Richard is a seasoned investment professional with over 2 decades of experience navigating the complexities of the financial world. Richard has worn many hats throughout his career. He's been a fund manager, institutional broker, a trader, financial advisor, and he's worked with both public and private markets. His expertise spans nearly every asset class, including alternative investments, derivatives, capital markets, and commercial real estate. He has worked with investment banks, hedge funds, private equity funds, venture firms, family offices, and major institutional investors, helping them all manage risk and build solid financial strategies. Today, we're going to dive into his journey, we're going to dive into his faith, and we're going to dive into his perspective on how financial stewardship can align with a life of purpose. I know you didn't think so, but it can. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you for that intro. That was fantastic.
It's great to have you here, Richard.
Appreciate it.
So let's start with a softball question. Where did you grow up?
I grew up here in South Florida. Had a really nice upbringing in, of course, warm Miami. Did a lot of fishing, baseball, regular kid in South Florida. Just a great place to grow up.
Nice. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have 4 brothers and sisters. They're all older than me. I'm the young one. I'm the baby of the family. So, really close. Of course, we're all getting older, but we stay in touch the best that we can.
Good. Are your siblings here in the Miami area as well?
I have one older brother that's in the Miami area, and the rest of them, they're in Florida, but northern Florida.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you get to see them very often?
Not as often as I'd like, because, I like to keep close to the family, but often enough, and we share holidays together, so that's real nice. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And how about your parents?
My parents, they both passed on, but my mother was Cuban, my father Italian, and so I'm that different mix. But yeah, it was, I missed them, of course, but it was they were great parents. Yeah. They gave me a lot of guidance and direction, and they gave me that spiritual foundation. Didn't continue it through, but that's later, probably part of the story that we would tell later.
So if I kind of glean from what you just said, so there was a certain level of spiritual foundation when you were growing up?
Yeah, absolutely. We're a part of the Catholic faith as far as, we went to church on Sunday, kind of like, I guess you call them, was it seasonal or vacation Catholics, something to that effect. But I did my first communion, but after that point on, I was about 10, 11 years old. I pretty much fell off and kind of went my own direction, kind of
Right.
didn't stay plugged into the church.
Okay. Not an uncommon story.
Yeah.
Fortunately recoverable, right?
Yeah, in a big way. Grand slam. So
there you go.
Yeah.
So you went to school the whole time here in South Florida?
I did. I went to public schools here and had a great education. Then I went away to the University of Florida. So I'm Floridian. I'm a Gator. So those of you who don't like Gators, I'm sorry, but go Gators. So.
Did you manage to go to church at all when you were in UF?
I did not. I didn't. I was really away from the spiritual life, and I didn't have God at the center of my life in any way. Unfortunately, I always felt like there was a God that was present. And I had that, of course, the seed was planted by my parents, but no, I didn't do it. Regretfully to say, but
yeah, just waiting to bloom later.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would imagine, just based on the bio, you studied some form of finance or accounting or something.
Yeah, finance undergrad. After that, I did real well. Went into the securities market, became a broker, and performed really well. That was really what I made as my focus and my, not really passion, but more of my idol was, the wealth I can create and the power it created and, how I can control people.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but that's kind of where I was at.
That's a common God in the world, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you feel any like pulls toward maybe something different or toward your faith at all?
It's a great question, Kendall. Yeah, so I absolutely did. But what it was for me is I always felt like what I was doing was empty. I would get to the next milestone and I was doing really well. It just didn't do it for me. That was my idol. And then I had, of course, external coping mechanisms that I used as well. So what really pulled me to the faith was, of course, a series of events that kind of lined up where it was just too big for me to control and handle.
Right. Are you comfortable talking about those events?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
So what was going on that kind of shook you up?
Yeah, so I did about 18 years, as institutional sales trader and covering institutions in a senior position, and was, well into seven figures and doing really well. But things changed abruptly all within 1 year. My parents, they passed, and we were acquired by our firm, and I had to go ahead and move to another firm. And unfortunately, we had some big financial hits. And then where it came to a point where, after my parents and my career and the funds that I accumulated over many, many years, my own, took a major, major hit in the market. That pretty much sealed the deal where I felt like I couldn't control it. And I wanted to go ahead and put something bigger and stronger at the center of my life.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Emotionally, what did that feel like in that time
Wow.
period? What were you wrestling with?
Man, I felt like my whole world fell apart. I felt like The Walking Dead. I didn't have any reason to continue. I also learned I was engaged and, I was divorced and I just felt like I was completely alone. My parents are gone. My purpose, which was money, and all the control that goes along with it. I couldn't turn to that to cope. So what was going on was I just felt completely out of control. The anxiety was tremendous. I just felt completely lost and in a dark place.
What kind of things were you relying on to try and manage that anxiety and that stress?
Women, and unfortunately, and exploitation in that sense, and alcohol. Not really drugs, but it was mostly alcohol, partying, doing things I shouldn't be doing.
typical masking, trying to hide behind.
Total mask. I was hiding completely. Everything was fine. I had it under control until it spiraled out of control where I just could not control it. And it was bigger than me, and I had to break down. And that's kind of what led me back to the faith. It was the crazy thing is that I was being pursued the whole time by God, and He's closer than we think all the time. And I kind of felt that though, but I always tried to control it. I did it my way, and I failed miserably at it. And it got to the point where I just said, "Listen, I don't want to do this anymore. I need to go ahead and give up and surrender and trust and have faith."
Well, spoiler alert, Richard. We all do the same thing, and we all fail at it. So
yeah,
that's why we're here, right?
Yeah, that's why we're here. Absolutely.
So it's interesting you said that you felt, I guess probably retrospectively, you felt like God was in pursuit. What little tells do you have that was the case?
Oh, wow. That's a great question as well. When I was in high school even, there was a counselor who took a liking to me and really, took me under his wing and guided me through the whole process. And I was able to go to the University of Florida and get my education and really, do well as far as a career. But it turns out later I found out that he actually was involved in the same retreat that we're involved in now, and the same parish. I didn't know that. So for me, he was pursuing me the whole time. There was someone else that I met while my mother unfortunately was passing, who led me to the same exact location as that person. And I thought that was just amazing. God was pursuing me the whole time, and some of the decisions I made, I knew they were the wrong decisions, and I still made them because I wanted to control, and it satisfied my needs temporarily, right? It was the coping mechanisms, although I knew they were wrong morally. Right. Yeah, and I still did them, and they didn't turn out well, I could tell you. So, but anyway, it's clear. Looking back, I could see the actual path. It's just amazing how God was there the whole time. And I just I wanted to control it myself. And now, as soon as I actually, kind of crossed that line where I said, "Okay, God, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give up all my anxiety. I'm going to give up all my worries, problems, troubles to you, and I'm going to trust and have faith." And then my anxiety subsided. No medication. My worries, my peace came back to me, and I pretty much was born again in a lot of ways, not only spiritually, but my physical health improved. And then the fellowship that I have now and the life that I have now is just amazing. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
So take me back to that day, the day you made that decision, the day that you laid that out. What did that look like?
Wow. It was actually a phone call that I made because I broke down. I was praying on my knees in my room. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just didn't want to live anymore. It was that bad. But then I made a phone call because I was given a phone number, a name, by a gentleman that was at the same facility where my mother was at in skilled nursing, and his wife was there as well. And he handed me this name and phone number. He said, "Give this person a call, when the shit, excuse my language, hits the fan, because it will. It's not a matter of if, it's when. Because we're all going to get older, right? Our bodies aren't going to hold up. We have loved ones that are going to pass. So at some point, you're going to experience trials and tribulations. Give this person a call." And so I did. And he told me to meet him at 6:30 a.m. And I was like blown away, at a church. And then the rest is history. He plugged me in, and it was a slow process. He plugged me in, but little by little, I kept with it. And God, I learned how to put God at the center of my life, and he guided me through the process.
So let me see if I get that right. So your mother failing health, she's in a facility.
Yeah.
There's another guy there you just kind of randomly talking to.
Yeah, and I'm blowing him off because I don't want to go to church. I don't believe, no Bible thumpers for me. So that was my thought process.
And he gave you a name and a number and said, It's gonna
happen.
It's gonna happen.
Oh yeah.
When it is. So how long between that moment and when you actually found that card and
6 months?
Really?
Yes.
So you held on to it that long?
Yeah.
And then you called?
I was feeling it, though.
Oh, yeah.
I was feeling it because of the losses, the loved ones. They're tremendous. There was other things that happened in my life that I found out that I didn't know, and with the divorces and not having a family, and so. But yeah, the losses were tremendous. They were mounting, and I couldn't control it. And I didn't have the coping mechanisms anymore. I didn't have the career and, making the crazy money and traveling all over the world and all the anxiety I can create for myself so I can go ahead and stress over it, right? That would keep me busy. But so I was forced to face myself and look at myself and deal with myself. And it was an ugly picture.
So you're on your knees, you pick up the phone and you dial this number of this guy. You have no idea who it is.
I have no idea who this person is. But this other person that I was speaking to in the nursing facility, that he was there for his wife, I respected him tremendously. He was trying to do good for me. I didn't even go to his church. So, but he told me another church to go to and the person I need to call to go there. And that person was the right person to call. And man, was he right. It was powerful.
What
changed my life?
What was that like? What was that change like?
I mean, the change was like, it wasn't immediate. It was a seed that was planted. But the peace of the people that I met, remember, I was building a castle on sand, and I built a really big castle that got blown down easily when things, hit the fan. But the peace I got from these gentlemen, these people that I met, along with the person I called, who also did the same thing. He was able to help me rebuild the foundation to rebuild that castle once again. So what it was like was, it was that sense of peace through them. They were the face of Christ for me. So.
Man, those moments, no matter how many times I hear it or how many variations of the story, and I experienced it myself. Like it's unbelievable how he just shows up when we're ready, right? And turns things around just emotionally, and there's just something that happens internally that you can't attribute to alcohol, drugs, women, cars, houses, anything else we try and.
I had all those, and none of that filled it, and they were all temporary. This was a permanent feeling of peace. And I said, I want what those guys have. I want what they have. And then, little by little, I wanted to be that, that face for others.
Right. So then comes the fun part. You've got to rebuild your life now, right?
Yeah.
So what was that like? How do you go about that? How did you go about that? What tools did you use? And how have you tried to not rebuild the same house on the same sand?
That's a great question. Well, first you have to really surrender and not try to control and try to negotiate and deal with the person that you have the center of your life, which is, which for me is God. So, create a real relationship with Christ on a daily basis. And that meant, scheduling time to create that relationship. Once that happened, before any of the other losses can actually, be rebuilt, I had to really understand to let go, surrender, have faith and trust, and really put God at the center of my life, my spiritual walk. And once I did that, things just started to click, meeting the right people, and the right books, the right therapy, and just became a new person. And there's a book, that I read. I don't know if I could say.
Sure.
Yeah, it's by Father Richard Rohr. It's called Falling Upward, and in the second half of life. And it's pretty much what happened to me. I had to get hit with a sledgehammer, unfortunately, but that's what it took for me. That's what it took for me in order to go ahead and really rebuild the right way. And I'm a new man and a different person, and so much better and so much wiser, and really I love who I am now.
Let's talk a little bit about that change, right? Because we're close to the same age, so
yeah,
we live with the past versions of ourselves for quite a while.
Yeah.
And I know for me that it wasn't an instantaneous change. Like suddenly I was a radically new person. I had a new feeling,
Yep.
but I had a lot of old habits.
Certainly. No, that's a great point. Once again, the seeds were planted. I saw the face of Christ in others, and I saw their peace, and I wanted that. I wanted that no matter what. My foundation needed to be solid enough so it can weather any storm, right? Mm-hmm. So in order to do that, it was straining. It's work, but it's work where you're doing this for the long run, and it's not a temporary fix, and it's work with peace and purpose. And man, I was hooked. And this is, I would never, 10 years ago, in a million years, think that I would be in this position saying this. Right. But, however, I really got to the point where I said, listen, there's got to be a better way. Otherwise, I'm going to self-destruct in a bad way and then affect a lot of others too along the way.
So, you're a professional finance industry, not exactly known for for the kind of life that you're now trying to build, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was all about numbers and performance and returns and, 100%. There is another side, though. The side, and you mentioned the stewardship and helping others actually, not only do well financially, but also there's places and ways of using skill sets that you create in the financial industry that have purpose. And there's impact investing, for example. You can, invest in technology that's trying to improve or solve a societal ill or problem. And really that's been my focus, and the people that I meet on a daily basis, when they see what I have, it's not perfect. It's still work on a daily basis, but they want to do business with me. And I certainly didn't do this for the business, and anything is possible, and it's a whole different feel completely. It's not toxic like it was before. So it's rooted in the foundation is it's light and beautiful.
So I heard something a long time ago that kind of sticks with me continuously, and that is, if you were on trial for being a Christian, would there be enough evidence to convict you? And quite honestly, there hasn't always been. I'd like to think there is for me. But what do you think the outside world sees in this new version of Richard Sincore, who's more at peace and trying to head in the right direction? What do you think the outward version, how does that look different to the world?
On the surface, they may be say and act like they're shocked or even kind of turned off by it, but down deep, because they were me, or if they're where I'm at now, then they wouldn't feel that way, right? But if they were who I was before, they would know down deep, if they were true to themselves, that he's walking the right path, and I want that. So it doesn't matter. I don't mind being vulnerable with them, because I know I'm doing my purpose and trying to, again, I don't know how much we can say here, but I like to be the face of Christ and glorify God through improving and helping others, solve whatever ailments or whatever it is they're dealing with in life, and become, have that peace that I have.
Right.
So yeah, what does it look like? Yeah, they're probably shocked and a little turned off. And I get guys, hey, it's not like I'm thumping, but because of my example and the way I'm living my life, I see them with a different level of respect for me, and treating me different, and talking to me different, and wanting to follow me. And that's powerful.
Yeah, that's for sure. So what are some of the tools that you use to kind of maintain your trajectory on that walk, and what's your, I don't know, daily rituals?
Yeah,
word,
that's a great question. Yeah, I do morning devotion myself, and I try to live in gratitude and be grateful. Like, for example, this show, and being able to go ahead and really share this with everybody. So that gratitude every morning, as soon as I wake up, I do my morning devotions about for a half hour. That includes actually the Hallow app. I know one of your guests was one of the founders, and I think it's fantastic. It's phenomenal. I use it on a daily basis. And then, of course, I read scripture. I go to mass, on Sundays, and then I participate in different ministries and fellowships, and like the retreat that we're talking about that you and we met at, is another one. So it's a big part of my life, but I bring that into, my work life as well, in the sense of, always smiling and trying to be that positive, peaceful person and have that attitude of gratitude so that others can see that as well.
That's awesome. Any words of advice for maybe folks in the same business as you, or, I mean, it doesn't really matter, right, what industry they're in. We're all struggling in the same way, but any words of advice?
100%. Yeah, if your focus is on the money and the returns, it's not going to be fulfilling. At some point, you're going to get to where you're not going to want to do this anymore. My advice is to maybe utilize some of those funds or your skills to a ministry or helping others in the community and really giving back that way. It's going to feel great for you, and it's going to help others. And, you'll be doing a great service to not only your fellow person and neighbor. It's one of the commandments that we were left behind, right? But for yourself, spiritual healing for yourself. So the finance industry can be very cutthroat and toxic. But again, it shouldn't be the focus and purpose. My advice, my thoughts of your life should be what helps you get to where you want to be. And that's, of course, family, friends, and, the ministries and giving back. But in the end, what do we really have? In the end, it's really all about the love you've given others.
Right. Great advice, Richard. And thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your story.
This is fantastic.
As I warned you, we're at the end.
Oh, okay. Well, I had a great time, so thank you.
Thank you for sharing that story. It's a common story, but thank you for sharing your personal details along the way. And what's amazing is you can go through those hardships, you can go through the challenges, and you can go through those moments of isolation and desperation. And then you have this on the other end, which is great. And you and I both know the world's full of guys like us that have gone through it, and now we can band together and help each other, which is amazing. So for those of you listening or watching, thank you once again for the prayers. Thank you for the messages of inspiration and the encouragement to keep this going. It's not the easiest thing on top of a job and a family and everything else to manage a podcast. I am eternally grateful for Grant and Michael and our producer staff that we have here that really take a heavy load from me. If you are inspired by Richard's story or any of the other stories we've had and you would like to sponsor this podcast, please feel free to reach out on everydayapostle.com. And until then, I encourage you guys to stay true to your faith, stay in prayer, pray for us for sure, and I will see you on the next episode. God bless.
God bless.
Thanks for tuning in to the Everyday Apostle. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, on your favorite podcast outlet, and at our website at everydayapostle.com. Until next time, stay blessed.